Lesson 39, circumference of a circle. So when we're looking at the circumference of a circle, we're looking at different parts. The circumference is the distance around the circle. You can see right here, the distance around the circle. So you're really finding the distance or the perimeter of a circle. And then we have two other parts. We have the diameter. The diameter is the distance across the circle. It has to go through the center. And then we have the radius. The radius is half of the diameter. So if you take the radius and double it, that gives you the diameter. So when we are finding circumference of a circle, we use the formula pi times diameter. And pi is rounded to 3.14, or you can use 22/7. So we're going to be looking at some problems finding the circumference of a circle. Let's take a look at our first example here. The diameter of a truck wheel is 35 inches. About how far does the wheel roll in one turn? So it says use 22/7 for pi. So circumference equals pi times diameter. They told us to use 22/7 for pi, and our diameter is 35 inches. So I'm multiplying by that by 35. I'm just going to make that 35 over 1 to make it a little bit easier. So I can simplify here. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 35 divided by 7 is 5. And then I'm left with 22 times 5. 22 times 5 would give us a circumference of 110 inches. Next one, the diameter of a wheel on the playground is 12 feet. What is the radius of a circle? So we have circumference equals, instead of saying pi times diameter, we could actually do 2 pi radius, because it's twice the radius would be the diameter. Now if we substitute our numbers in, it says the diameter, actually here, we wouldn't need to use the formula because it says the diameter is 12 and the radius is half of the diameter. So half of 12 would give us 6 feet. The spoke on the bike wheel is about 12 inches long. The diameter of the wheel is about how many inches? Now a spoke goes from the outer part of the wheel to the center of the wheel. So the radius is 12. So if I double the radius, that would give us the diameter. So the diameter of the wheel would be 24 inches. Next one, the fan belt on Fernando's car wraps around 2 circular pulleys. One pulley has a diameter of 8 centimeters, the other has a diameter of 12 centimeters. What is the ratio of the pulley's circumference? So let's find the circumference of the smaller one. So that would be pi times 8, and this would be the diameter of the larger wheel would be pi times 12. Now since they're asking us to write a ratio, I wrote it as a ratio here, but I can also write it as a fraction. So it would be 8 pi over 12 pi. And I can simplify here. The pi's cancel each other out. And I can divide these by 4/4, and I can get a ratio of 2 to 3. So our ratio from the smaller wheel to the bigger wheel would be 2/3. What effect does doubling the diameter of a circle have on the circumference? Well, if you double the diameter, you should be doubling the circumference. And let's just test that out. So if we had 2 pi for the diameter and we double this, so that means we take this times 2, we would end up with 4 pi. And 4 is doubled 2, and pi still stays the same, so it would be the answer would be we would double the circumference. George Ferris designed a Ferris wheel for the 1893 World Columbian Exposition in Chicago. The wheel was 74 meters in diameter. Calculate the circumference of the wheel to the nearest meter. So pi times diameter, and the diameter was 75 times 3.14 equals the circumference. So we're going to take 3.14 times 75, which gives us 235.5. Says to the nearest meter, so this would be about 236 meters. Diameter of a circle painted on the playground is 7 yards. The distance around the circle is about how many yards? What number did you use for pi, and why did you use that number for pi? Since I'm using the diameter is 7, circumference equals pi times diameter. Diameter is 7. I'm going to make that 7 over 1. I know that 22/7 will work better than 3.14 because I know the 7s can cancel each other out, and I'm left with a circumference of 22 yards. So when you're dealing with what should you use 22/7 or 3.14, if the number is divisible by 7, then I would use the 22/7. So that would be one thing to look for when you're looking at the diameter. And our last problem. A bicycle tire with a diameter of 30 inches rolls about how many inches in one turn? So we're really finding the circumference. So the circumference equals pi times diameter. So we're going to take 3.14 times 30, and we get the circumference of being 94.2. And since they are asking you about how many inches, we would say the circumference rounded to be about 94 inches. And the last one, the diameter of the Earth at the equator is about 7,927 miles. About how many miles is the circumference of the circle at the equator round to the nearest 100 miles? So the diameter is 7,927. If I multiply that by pi, that will give us the circumference of the circumference of the Earth at the equator. So now we're going to take our 7927 times 3.14, and we get a circumference. It says round to the nearest 100 miles. I'll write what I got right now. So if I do the multiplication, you get 24,890.78. So it says round to the nearest 100 miles. So the 100 would be 8. So I have to look at the 9. So this would be the circumference would be about 24,900 miles. So that is our lesson today on circumference of a circle.